And welcome back to another episode of Creating Madness. I'm your host for tonight's show, Ethan Carboni, as per usual. And tonight, we are talking about a very interesting conference in college basketball, which before last night, give or take, you had 4, maybe 5 top dogs in the SEC. And now I think it's just slowly dwindled down to 1. And I'm just going to start off by saying those 4 were Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky. We know what happened to LSU yesterday. 70-55 loss, where they went through nearly 10 minutes of the game, scoring just 1 point. An absolutely pathetic showing from the Tigers. They eventually picked it up, but when you are shooting 29% from the field and 21% from 3, it's just absolutely horrendous. In that game, they were going, in that stretch of those first 10 minutes, they went 0-11 for the first 10 minutes. And looking at that game, just from a viewing standpoint, it was probably one of the ugliest games I've ever watched. LSU airballed at least 5 threes in the first half. Auburn airballed maybe 2 throughout the entire game, and LSU airballed another 3 or 4 in the second half. LSU, if they managed to not airball, 9 out of their 29 threes, and they can at least make 2 of them, they at least have some momentum, maybe, to make this closer. Obviously, it doesn't help that Auburn wasn't hitting some shots down the stretch, but overall, at least if you're Auburn, Jabari Smith killed it with the paint defense, locking up LSU's interior offense, and then overall for them, he scored the points that they needed. Wendell Green scored. Walker Kessler has been one of the most underrated paint defenders this entire year. He is the best defensive plus-minus out of any player in the league. So, if I'm in the SEC, I'm watching out for Auburn for sure. LSU at 17. Although it was just a 15-point loss, we saw how they performed in those first 10 minutes of the game, and I do not like what I saw. I do not think any viewers of the game, especially LSU fans, like what they saw. I don't think the journalists that vote on the AP poll are going to like what they see. I would not be surprised if we see LSU fall out of the top 25. My prediction, though, I'm seeing them at around 24 on Monday. Auburn, however, at 12, had Michigan State lost because they were down to High Point at halftime, I'd say you flip them with Auburn. But Auburn definitely is playing like a top 10 team, or at least they have been. Now we're going to move into that Kentucky-Missouri game. Everyone knew what was going to happen with this. You had Kentucky just dominating. Missouri got it within 15 throughout the second half, but they eventually lost by 27. In that Missouri game, the thing that kept them on the bench was Coleman and Davis off the bench. This is Missouri. This is one of their worst teams ever, and probably the worst of the past decade. And you're going up against a Kentucky team, which has some of the best players in the country. Sahvir Wheeler shot poorly, 5 of 12, okay. Oscar Tshiebwe shot absolutely horrendous from the field, 2 of 10. Still managed to get 13 points because he went 9 of 10 from the charity stripe. Oscar Tshiebwe just got hacked so much in this game and still manages to get 13 points along with 20 boards. He got 20 out of 47 of the rebounds for Kentucky. Missouri managed to get 33 with 7 offensive rebounds, which in itself is impressive. If you're comparing yourself to like the one and only Oscar Tshiebwe, because he's easily the best rebounder in the entire country. Just looking at him play, he's for sure earned himself a spot in the NBA draft. Where he goes, I do not know, but Oscar Tshiebwe was playing like the most dominant rebounder on the face of planet Earth. Then moving right into other players on this team that really are going to help Kentucky move on, you have freshman Ty Washington, who this year he has been actually doing pretty well. I mean, you're a freshman playing on Kentucky. You're not expecting a whole lot because if we're being 100% honest, this is Ty Washington, who 5-star, you come into a guard-heavy Kentucky team. Yet you managed to put up nearly 14 points, 4 boards, 3.5 assists. I mean, you're putting up the numbers, especially in the games where it'll be harder. That's not necessarily. I mean, he's not necessarily shooting the best against the really competitive games, but that's life. And he'll need to work on that. He'll need to be able to put up numbers when he's actually playing against good teams. Obviously, the loss to Notre Dame does not help him nor Kentucky, but Ty Washington's definitely a name to look out for when it comes to tournament time. Another name that it's you're gonna have to look out for throughout this entire year, especially when it comes to tournament time, is going to be Keon Brooks. He's been averaging about 11.5 points this year, nearly 5 boards. I mean, 6'7" forward or guard, depending on where they play him, because they sometimes will play him as a 2 if need be. If you're Kentucky, he's one of the, I feel like the best way to describe him is the perfect role player, because he'll get the rebounds you need. He'll play incredible defense when you need him to. Great in transition, very bouncy. Keon Brooks is going to be one of the main reasons why this Kentucky Wildcats team is able to compete for that top spot in the SEC. And then moving into the other two teams, Alabama, Tennessee. Tennessee knocked off undefeated number 6 Arizona within the past couple weeks. I believe it was this week. And you know what? I rode the Tennessee hype train. I thought Tennessee was going to be Alabama. And they couldn't hit their shots down the stretch. And then for Alabama, Shackelford had some late game heroics, but his stats don't prove it. 5 of 17 from the field, 2 of 10 from 3. If it wasn't for his late game heroics and it wasn't for Noah Gurley off the bench with the 20 and 10 double-double, Alabama should have gotten crushed. And as a team, if you shoot 23% from 3, it definitely helped that Tennessee shot 24%. And Tennessee just didn't shoot incredibly well from the field overall. Bama made 43% of their shots. Alabama, and by Alabama, really, it's just Quinerly and Gurley who hit a high majority of their shots. Quinerly has been surprisingly impressive because you look at him from 5-star, all right, I'm going to play at Villanova, average 3 points, I want to start, I don't want to sit until I'm a senior, I want to be NBA. You know what? Goes to Alabama, wasn't the number 1 guy, impressed, about 13 points, and then he's on a winning team and he's actually contributing, so he's happy with it. This year, averaging nearly 15 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. I think he could go in the NBA after this year. You never know. He's been putting up numbers against teams when it matters. You see the 18 points against Tennessee. Although in the loss to Davidson, he did only he got 13, but in the big ones, he does good. When they lose, he doesn't do as good. Then moving right into Tennessee. In this game, it was just a bad shooting performance, like I said. But key players, obviously, you got to go. Also, to be fair, they were without 2 of their starters. Like, when you have Kennedy Chandler out, if you're Tennessee, if you have Kennedy Chandler in, you're not worrying about this at all. When you are having Josiah Jordan-James have to shoot 7 3-pointers, when he makes only 1 of them, you're not having a good game. When you're having Oliver and Nikamau have to chuck up 17 shots, you're not having a good game. Tennessee needs their stars to be there, and you know their entire team is star built. It's just a matter of, if you're Tennessee, you need Kennedy Chandler. He has been one of the top 5 passers in college basketball. He's one of the best freshman point guards I think we've ever seen. I feel a good comparison for Kennedy Chandler is probably Lonzo Ball. A smarter Lonzo Ball. Because, alright, Lonzo Ball was a bit cocky at UCLA, let's be honest here. Kennedy Chandler is a bit more smooth, and he plays like a veteran. He knows what he's doing. I think that when Kennedy Chandler's there, Tennessee wins this game. But you know what? He wasn't. Alabama wins, and it's a 3 or 4 team race, depending on how you look at it. I think that you can probably knock down Auburn if we're going to have to knock one of these 4 teams down. And that's really just because they run through Jabari Smith so much and KD Johnson to the point where if one of Auburn loses a player, they're screwed. Kentucky has the next guy up mentality. Alabama has the next guy up mentality. Tennessee has the next guy up mentality. It's just their shots weren't falling. Alabama played incredible defense in the second half as well. So, if you're Alabama, you just storm through the rest of the year, and you're just moving on. Some other high-key action that happened, because really yesterday was the only important day in college basketball. The day before that, there was practically nothing. There was 2 games. Yesterday was the only game. Actually, correction, 2 days before yesterday, there was only 2 games. But the day before yesterday, there was 12. And nothing important happened 2 days before yesterday, unless you really want to count Texas destroying Incarnate Word, Notre Dame beating Pitt by 1. So yeah, yesterday was the only important day. Wednesday, December 29th was the important day of the week. And really, something that stood out to me is that Wisconsin allowed Illinois State to get within 4 points of them. They allowed them to have a 49-point second half, and in particular allowed 2 players of theirs, Cy Chapman and Antonio Reeves, to get 22 and 23 points apiece. This is a Wisconsin team that's known for their defense, always, and known for their shooting. What happened in this game? Johnny Davis, Brad Davidson, 6 out of 23 and 1 of 9 shooting. Free throws are the things that got them a lot of their points. The one thing I will say, though, for them, at least you have Crowell, who went 7 of 8 from the field, because if you're Wisconsin, you need to have a much better shooting performance every single night. Because you cannot, as a team, they shot 42 and 40 and 78, which are good splits. Don't get me wrong. But from your 2 stars, your role players won't always be able to step up. Your bench won't always be able to step up. If you're Wisconsin, you got saved by the role players in the starting lineup. And really, it's just the fact that it was this close with an Illinois State team, which, although good for Missouri Valley Conference MAC team, I believe Missouri Valley Conference, it's not great. It's not a great team. It's not one of the Drakes, the Loyola Chicagos. This is an Illinois State team that, if they make the tournament, I'm choosing them to get out. It's not going to be an upset type of team. And then, speaking of upsets and brackets, I want to look at a bracketology from recent. This is a 6 days ago ESPN bracketology. If I can get it to load here. We have, alright, here is the 68 team bracketology. We have we have on the bubble, the last 4 byes: Virginia Tech, Florida, San Francisco, St. Mary's, the last 4 in. Wake Forest, Mississippi State, Northwestern, Creighton, first 4 out: DePaul, San Diego State, Marquette, Utah State, TCU, St. Bonnie, Clemson, Loyola, and Louisville are the next 4 out. And you know what? I think that's fair. St. Bonnie is going to have to The fact that they don't have them winning their conference is confusing to me, but, that's all right. Looking at the 6-8 team bracket, you have 16-16 for this Campbell, Texas Southern, and Nicholls State and Norfolk State. And then you have the 2 11 seed matchups, Wake Forest, Mississippi State, Northwestern, Creighton. Something that I think, just looking at this straight up, I think you're going to see Northwestern in this tournament. I think that's almost a given at this point. Northwestern has shocked so many people. I said in the beginning of the year, I could very well see them as a top 25 team by the end of the year. And then you have Creighton, who, not this year, but next year is a for sure top 25 team. This year they're on the border. If they get in, they got a couple good wins, but for now, I would not say that they are. Then another team that has been very impressive so far, Wake Forest, and then Mississippi State. The fact that these two are in the, I know this was from 6 days ago, but the fact that these two are in the first four, and Mississippi State's getting way in. Like, I understand Arkansas is highly overrated, but you're Mississippi State. You're coming off that win against Arkansas. Hell yeah, I'm loving that Mississippi State. Then moving to the South portion, because again, this is ESPN's bracket. This is Joe Lunardi. You have Baylor as the South Division 1 seed going up against Liberty. And obviously, I don't think there's a 16-1 upset. I don't think you can, if you had to choose a 16-1 upset. Liberty this year is not the team that they have been in the past. Although they should very well win their conference, I don't choose them to. I choose them to, I just don't choose them to beat Baylor. Then moving down this, you have BYU, Iowa, Keegan Murray in Iowa versus Alex Barcello and the BYU Cougars. Yeah, this should be Iowa. I think that if Keegan Murray really goes off, that Iowa team could beat anyone in the country. And then you move into the next, Alabama, Belmont. Obviously, this is coming off of Alabama's cold streak. Alabama at this point, I'd say, is a 4 or 3 seed. I don't think they're a 5. If they're a 5 against Belmont, as much as any other 5 seed I see here, looking at the other 5 seeds, I take Belmont over. This is the 1-5 seed. I would not take Belmont over. Then moving to the 4-13 game, Chattanooga, Ohio State. I'm going to be honest, I have not paid a lot of attention to Chattanooga. All I know is that this year they are doing much better than I would have expected. And they are doing good to the point where I think that they could beat Ohio State. I think Chattanooga, looking at all of the potential teams for a Cinderella run right now, if you look at Chattanooga, they have a very interesting system that they run to the point where I'm excited to watch it. I really am. And I'm thinking, just give me 1 second here. I'm thinking that if you look first off at their team, you're having a leading scorer who's averaging 20 points per game, Malachi Smith. You're having David Jean-Baptiste averaging 14.5, and then Silvio De Souza at 12.5. De Souza and Jean-Baptiste are doing incredible on the defensive side of the ball. And Malachi Smith is excellent at feeding the ball to his teammates and excellent at scoring the ball himself. Just having that deadly trio right there, I think that they could beat a lot of teams. My only problem is when you fall to their role players. Their top 3 players are playing 34, 32, and then 20 minutes per game. De Souza is going to have to take that step above. 20.6 minutes per game. If he gets tired, I understand, but like off the bench, you can't play like that against an Ohio State. You're going to have to start your best guys. And De Souza has proven it this year that he's the top player on the Chattanooga team. Then moving into the next game, Seton Hall, Davidson. Davidson's been very good this year. Seton Hall, Lake Creighton, they've been good. They've been borderline top 25 or top 25 this entire year. So I'd probably give them the edge over Davidson. And then you have Tennessee, UC Irvine. Tennessee keeps moving up the boards. I mean, looking at them, I do not think that they would. I think that they're a 3 or 4 seed. I don't think they'd lose to UC Irvine. Then you got Wisconsin and San Francisco. San Francisco they've been one of the most incredible teams. They, I believe, will end up being a team to watch in this tournament. However, I would like to think that Wisconsin's good enough to make the 3 ball. That's what San Francisco does too, but they can play better defense than San Francisco. You know, they're one of the best defensive teams. You put Power 5 talent versus mid-major talent. It's about the coaching. And you know what? We've seen Wisconsin's coaching as some of the most incredible coaching in college basketball. Then moving into the 2-15, Texas State, Arizona. Texas State is an incredible team in their conference, but we've seen what happens when they go up against Power 5 teams. Arizona, lock that in if that were to happen. Moving into the Western, you have Gonzaga, Princeton, obviously Gonzaga. Then you move into North Carolina, Indiana. UNC Reliant is on Caleb Love and Armando Bacot. Shut them down, you're going to win. Indiana relies heavily on Trace Jackson Davis. Shut him down, you're going to win. So which team has the better coached and better disciplined team? North Carolina. I'd go with North Carolina in that case. Moving into the 5-12, Auburn, Iona. We just saw what happened to Auburn. I mean, in reality, if you're looking at an Auburn team that just has not been as successful as some people predicted and has been more successful than others predicted, I believe wholeheartedly that we are going to see an Iona upset in whatever game that they are in, as long as they are a 14 to 12 seed in this game. Then moving right in to the 4-13 game, I'm in love with the way Lunardi sets up some of these regions. Just a simple point of I enjoy Iowa State, New Mexico State. New Mexico State is one of the most entertaining teams in their conference and all of college basketball. No, Iowa State has just surprised every single person. Right now, put in the chat, put in whatever, put in the comments, tweet at us on socials at ATR Madness. Tell me right now, where did you have Iowa State at the beginning of the year? Because we've been very vocal. Everyone's been very vocal. Where did you have Iowa State at the beginning of the year? Colorcast chat, YouTube comments, wherever. Add us on Twitter. Where did you have Iowa State? Because we had them second to last in their conference only because John and I did not want to follow all the people that I'm last. We're like, you know what, we're going to give them a boost up. Yeah, we should have given them a lot more boost, and that's what everyone says. I don't think anyone had their hearts, even Iowa State fans did not have their eyes set so highly. And then Iowa State's going to play Baylor later this week. If Iowa State can manage to keep it within 10 points of Baylor, I'd consider that a win earlier in the season. And now we're looking at a team that I think that we could very well see have a win in the back of their pocket at some point in this game. I think Iowa State should be able, at this point, they should mop the floor with anyone. That's just the way I look at it. And then moving into UConn and St. Mary's. UConn has been one of the most impressive teams in all college basketball history. And, you know, going up against St. Mary's, one of the best defensive teams, yeah, give me St. Mary's to lose this game. I love UConn so much. I know John's favorite team, not Texas or Colorado, is UConn. I'm riding UConn all the way through this. Then you got Houston and Oakland. Houston without Marcus Sasser for the rest of the year. Oakland, we interviewed their head coach, Greg Kampe. Go check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all viewing platforms. A great interview. Oakland has a veteran coaching staff by pretty much, he's the second oldest head coach in college basketball. Only Coach K is older than him, and he's retiring at the end of this year. I think Coach Kampe told us he has another 2 years left. Coach Kampe is an incredible coach. He's coached Oakland all the way to Division I basketball. He's made a couple tournaments, and I think he'll make this. I think at this rate, he'll make this one. He's competing with Wright State right now. That's his top competition. Them, Cleveland State. So I'm just going to say right now, if I'm Oakland and I had that matchup, I mean, I'd probably say I'd take them over Houston. Obviously, this is from 6 days ago. My pick to win the conference right now, it was Wright State beginning of the year. Now it's probably Cleveland State, but it's between them, Oakland, and Wright State. So I think Oakland would be able to get past a Marcus Sasser unled Houston. 7-10 games. You know what? You got West Virginia, Minnesota. Minnesota's been another surprise. People on worst team in Big Ten. They've been very impressive, to say the least. And you're going up against a West Virginia team that, although defensive-minded and although very good, I think Minnesota would be able to upset here. Then moving right into 2:15, Weber State, UCLA. If UCLA shot bad, I'd give it to Weber State. But as long as UCLA shoots over 25% from three, I'd give it to UCLA. Midwest region. This is a very interesting situation. Purdue versus Campbell or Texas Southern. Yeah, no, Purdue. Simple as that. Loyola Chicago, Arkansas. I love me some Loyola Chicago, as much as it pains me to say, but the fact that Arkansas in the spot, they're not going to be in the spot. We could very well see Arkansas completely dropping out of the tournament at this rate. I don't know who in the hell thinks that Arkansas is going to be a 9 seed or higher at this point. They're a 10, 11 seed. Obviously, this is from 6 days ago, but still, Loyola Chicago would mop the floor with Arkansas. And I'm very content with that. Then you got Providence, UCF. UCF is on the upcome. They play Michigan tonight. But Providence has just been so good this year. I mean, if you're looking at Providence right now, and you were to see, like, their beginning of the year predictions, you say Nate Watson, and then you need Al Durham to step up. Al Durham has stepped up in the way that he's just going to shoot the ball. Maybe not well, but he'll be a confident shooter. Then you have Nate Horchler, who last night, very much so, he's the best three-point shooter on this team by a long shot. He's making 44% of his shots. And you know what? I like that. I think Horchler's an incredible player. I think he doesn't get enough respect. I think he might be one of the best big men three-point shooter, probably the best big man three-point shooter in the country. Then you got Kentucky and Ohio. The loss of Jason Preston hurts Ohio. We know that. Last year they had to play a Virginia team that was on the downfall. It does not matter who Ohio has. It does not matter if you put Jason Preston back on this team. This Kentucky team is one of the most dominant, probably, I'd say Oscar Sheba is the most dominant player off the paint since Shaq this year. Oscar Sheba is so incredible at rebounding that I don't think any team could keep up with just him alone. I think if you put him in the paint versus three players, I'd take him, depending on the three players. Kentucky would win that easily. Then moving in, you have Illinois versus Wake Forest or Mississippi State. I'm assuming Mississippi State makes that one. But, you know, Wake Forest has been very good this year. I just think Mississippi State, for what we've seen recently, give me Mississippi State to win that 11 seed battle. And then from there, I just think if you're looking at it from plain view, who is the stars? Illinois is the stars. While Mississippi State has a lot of talent on their team. And you know what? We've seen the talent on this Mississippi State team. They beat Arkansas. Because if you're really looking at it from beginning of the year, they have a lot, they have some very good players, but at the same time, you're not necessarily expecting Mississippi State to do as good as they have. They're probably 5th in their conference right now. And then just looking at the roster, having Iverson Molina as the junior leader, averaging 17 points. You have Smith averaging 14, Moore averaging 11, Brooks averaging nearly 11, and DJ Jeffries averaging 11. I think Mississippi State has so much talent, and if they were to go against Illinois, I think having so much talent in this spread of 5-6 players, and then you add Illinois with Kofi Cockburn, Trent Frazier, and Alfonso Plummer, and maybe Andre Curbelo if he ever gets healthy. I just think having 3, maybe 4 stars if Curbelo ever fixes his turnovers, I think that's enough to beat Mississippi State. Then you have Villanova Hofstra. Hofstra lost to a terrible team yesterday, and they were favored by 16 points. If you're losing by 16, if you're losing by any amount, they lost by, I think it was 1, but if you're losing by any amount to a 16-point underdog, that's pathetic. Villanova would wipe the floor with Hofstra. Then moving in, Colorado State, Florida. You have the Mountain West winner versus an SEC team with Colin Castleton and not much else. Although me and John have expressed our love for Castleton. Hell, if we can get Castleton on a show, you know what? If someone can give me Colin Castleton interview, I would pay you $50. He is an incredible player to watch. I just have to go Colorado State. I think they have some of the most underrated players on the entire in the entire league, to be honest with you. Because you're looking at a team that is just sorry. You're looking at a team that is nearly undefeated, first off. And then they have one of the most precise offenses in the league. And it's just so entertaining. You have David Roddy, who's the most underrated player in the entire country. And then you have Isaiah Stevens. I really just believe Colorado State's that good to the point where they could compete for a title, to be even honest. Just depends on their route. And they'd probably have to play Kansas because Kansas would beat Navy in a heartbeat. Patriot League, I personally don't got Navy. I got Colgate, but, Navy very well could do it. Then we got, one more region before I got to head out. Duke versus Nicholls State, Norfolk State. You already know Duke will smash them. Then you got Michigan and Oklahoma. No. Michigan, preseason team, nearly number 5 in the country, top 5 in the country. What the hell happened? This is not my Illinois bias, but I'm going to say this right now. Juwan Howard is one of the most overrated coaches in the entire country at this point. I love him. Believe me, we got a quote from him on our socials. He's an incredibly nice person. But this Michigan team, I'm not going to say he's an overrated coach. But his team is not playing well under him. They've dropped games that they shouldn't. And looking at it like this, you're going up against an Oklahoma team that I love. Oklahoma basketball has numerous wins that, coming into the year, they weren't expected to put it frankly. Tanner Groves, using that extra year of eligibility, has killed it. 14 points. Jerome Goldwire, the Duke transfer, has killed it, being a defensive monster. And the fact that you're looking at a team whose coach in last year for Loyola Chicago did not necessarily lead a high-scoring offense, is now averaging 75. Porter Moser is such an incredible coach, and he's worked his way with this Oklahoma team. And then once he's able to get his own recruits in, I see no reason why it's going to stop. Give me Oklahoma. Then you got Xavier, UAB. UAB is going to win their conference very easily. I love UAB. I think that Xavier is a good team, and it would kill me to have to pick against them. But I gotta go Xavier. I can't pick against Xavier again when they're going against UAB. If they're going against any other team, pretty much, I just don't think that UAB. I don't think the seniority of the leadership could be a Starfield team in Xavier. LSU, South Dakota State. South Dakota State is playing North Dakota State today, and you know what? If South Dakota State can win this game convincingly, I'd choose South Dakota State over LSU. Just because I don't think LSU has what it takes. They have not played any competition until last night, where they got smashed by Auburn, as we discussed earlier. Get out of here. And South Dakota State upset. Texas versus Northwestern or Creighton. I'd say Northwestern beats Creighton there, and then I'd say Texas narrowly defeats Northwestern. I'm excited for the first four this year. I never am, but there's just so much talent on the bubble right now that the first four games are going to be so good. Moving into USC Vermont. Vermont is one of the best teams in the American East, the best team actually, I believe. And USC has been very impressive. USC has been more impressive than anyone could have thought. You'd expect UCLA, you'd expect Oregon. No, USC has been dominant. You lose a lottery pick and then you don't replace him with another guaranteed lottery pick. You lost Evan Mobley. You lost that lottery pick. And, they're still doing incredible. His brother's doing incredible. That entire team's doing incredible. Give me USC in that case. Then you got Texas Tech and Virginia Tech. And I love Virginia Tech this year, but Texas Tech has come out of nowhere. You lost your head coach, who's a top 5 coach in college basketball right now. Let's be honest here. And then if you're going to just come out and be competitive, that's just absolutely insane to me. If you look at the team as a whole, you're seeing a team that plays team basketball. You have Kevin McCullough as their leading scorer because Shannon's been out. You have Williams, Warren, O'Banner all playing well. O'Banner, let's be honest, he was maybe a bit overrated in that transfer portal, but, March Madness helped. And looking at it right now, the 2 kids from Oral Roberts probably should have went to the NBA last year, but that's a whole different conversation for next week. And then you got Michigan State and Wagner. Obviously, Michigan State, love them. And Wagner, although good, I don't trust it. I really don't. And now, thank you guys for watching the stream. Make sure you check out all of our episodes. We had a great interview today with a former Purdue and Colorado State player. Do I spoil it? Actually, I think I will. Jonathan Octius. He's probably the smartest basketball player off the court, and he's just so smart, business-minded, so smart, life-minded. Go check out that interview. It was a hell of an interview. Check out our socials. Check out our YouTube, Creating Madness on YouTube. Check out our socials, _Creating Madness on Instagram. And check out ATR Madness, our Twitter. Make sure you also check out Unwrapped Sports. Thank you for putting the show on. And you know what? Good night. Thank you guys so much.